Guys, we are live. Welcome into the Gashouse Gang. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here for the first Gashouse Gang of 2025. Bern, we get to ring in the new year. How's it going, man?
Everything's great, man. You're looking good in that Gashouse
Woo!
Gang t-shirt. How about
Look at that? We got merch.
I got mine around here somewhere. I just haven't put it on yet. So
I mean, we don't have them yet for sale, but that's the plan, right? The plan's going to be they're going to be available to the general public here in the not too distant future. I guess sometime here early in 2025. So I feel like, I'm like one of Barker's beauties. I'm modeling the t-shirt so that people get excited. There is a version of this that's also like in the Cardinals, like baby blue, powder blue. That's kind of nice looking too. So, might have to do a few different versions of it, maybe white also. But yeah, it's a good way to ring in the new year. I figured is to promote the merch that we're going to be bringing to the table.
Yeah, we're just trying to have fun, and that includes going to have fun. You got to have some merch too, right?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, why the hell not? There you go. Exactly. Garland wants to jump in on it.
Hey, Garland.
Yeah. Hey, look, a hat wouldn't be bad. That's a good idea too. No, it's a great logo too. So just right across there, nice, very nice.
Well, add it to my collection. By the way, this is 1948 Columbus Cardinals cap. That was a AA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. One of the guys on the team was, I messed this up already, but there were a lot of, when the Cardinals had that team in Columbus, Ohio, in the AA level, all kinds of future Hall of Famers passed through. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out. People wonder that doesn't look like a regular Cardinals cap. No, it's not. It's a replica. Yeah, it's a vintage. It's a classic. Anyway, enough of that since we were talking about merch.
So we're going to do a lot of baseball today, but we're going to get to that in a few minutes. We're going to talk about it's kind of I guess you could say a reset on the Arenado market, where it sits, where we are now. Are there teams that we haven't brought up that could still be interested? Things like that. We're going to get into that. Also want to talk a bit about, how it plays later in the year if some of the Cardinals' top prospects are pushing for big league spots. Does it take injuries? Are they going to make room? We'll get into all that in a little bit, but we got to start with college football, Bern.
Sure.
And obviously, look, on the serious note, we've got a game today because yesterday was postponed in the Sugar Bowl because of the terrorist attack down in New Orleans. So obviously horrific scene. I'm actually kind of surprised that they're able to pull this off just one day later. But, obviously the authorities have been all over this. So we've got that serious news side to it. And that's something we'll cover, on DGS coming up here in a little bit. For now, we're going to focus on the games and talk about what we're here to do on the Gashouse Gang, which is the sports part. So here's what we have so far in the 3 games that we've seen in the college football playoffs this weekend. We had one game that went exactly as expected. The first one exactly as we kind of expected it to. Second game was a lot closer than we thought it would be. Arizona State put in everything to make it close against Texas, and Texas had to win in overtime. And then we had the blowout that nobody expected. We had Ohio State just ruin Oregon. So we've got one more today, Notre Dame and Georgia coming up at 4:00, and we'll look forward to seeing, how that one plays out. But so far, I think it's been interesting.
Oh, I do too. I mean, starting with Penn State beating Boise State. Now, it was a 17-point margin. So, yeah, it kind of looks bad in that context. But, Boise State ran more plays. They had more yards. I think they had more first downs. They did a lot of things well, and they were right there. They were right there, down 17-14. The problem is once they crossed midfield and got into Penn State territory, they imploded.
Yeah.
I mean, they had 4 turnovers on the game. They had 13 penalties. They were awful in the red zone. In fact, I think that's where 2 of their turnovers occurred. If they had played a cleaner game and they had gotten anything done in the red zone, they may have been able to pull off an upset. But my point is, I'm so used to Kirk Herbstreit or somebody who has a big microphone declaring that something. Well, I don't know why. This just shows that team never should have been in. Well, first of all, there's no one of sound mind that would say Boise State should have never been in. My point is that I really thought they acquitted themselves well, all things considered. And it looks even better now that, you saw Oregon just get trucked and rolled over, and they went forward, and then they backed up on them. They just kept rolling over Oregon all day long. So I thought Boise State gave Penn State a pretty good game and have nothing to be ashamed of. But you take it from there, man.
Yeah, I think, the overarching thing outside of just talking about the games, and regardless of which way it goes today with Notre Dame or Georgia, it's not going to be any kind of controversy, right? They're both teams
Right.
that belong, and nobody argued that they didn't. But what I think we've seen so far outside of the first round, look, in the first round we had some blowouts. It happens. It happens in the NFL playoffs. Playoffs are not about just picking the best 8 teams or 12 teams or whatever. There's a reason why division winners in professional sports get in. There's a reason why you have wild cards get in. There are times that teams with better records don't get in if they're in, say, the American League instead of the National League, right? Because league structure has to mean something, and it's about opportunity to compete. Boise State, as you pointed out, acquitted themselves pretty well. Arizona State damn near won that game, and arguably should have in regulation if the correct targeting call had been made against Texas. That would have.
I don't know what target. I'm sorry, man. I don't know what targeting is anymore. I don't think the officials know. I'm like tired of it, and please understand what I'm saying. I do believe it's important to protect players, but my point is they don't protect players the way they should, and it's like the eye of the beholder thing, and so it's not fairly ruled on. I should say it's not consistent in terms of how it's determined whether it's targeting or not.
Yeah.
That said, look, that was a tough break for Arizona State. That said, they still had multiple chances to win the game. I mean, I see a lot of sobbing about that. I've never believed that you pin responsibility for a win or a loss on one play. That game was a marathon. Both teams had plenty of chances to win the game. You know what I thought was this? And Arizona State was great. And Scattleboo, once again, he's just a beast. And the thing about that is that
game, by the way, the rushing yards, receiving yards, and the big passing touchdown.
I mean, and the thing about it is, watching the game, he's on the sideline getting sick. He's having a tap out during the game, and it looked like he was totally wiped out, just a man totally exhausted. And then he come running back out there again. So there was a time you're like, listen, that dude gave it his best shot. He got beat up by that defensive front Texas has early on, and it just wasn't going to be his day. And it looks like physically he's drained. My gosh, Terminator stuff. He just regenerated over and over and over and over again. And you know what? And if I could, this is related. What the Scattleboo stuff's related to what I wanted to say, because I think I love what Arizona State did, but they were able to get back in the game because it was Steve Sarkisian's a wonderful man and he's a great recruiter, but he's like your guy, Mario Cristobal down in Miami.
Yeah.
I cannot trust Sarkisian in games in big spots. So you have this big offensive line, and you just muscled Clemson out of the way in the first round, right? You just physically got them out of the way and ran on them all night long, right? So they come out, okay, great. They 2 plays touchdown early. And then I guess Sarkisian thought, well, we can throw it all day. So they tried to throw it all day. They entering the fourth quarter, Texas had only 27 offensive plays up to that point because of all these 3 and outs and all of these stupid passes and Ewers throwing into double coverage. They let Arizona State hang around because the game plan was asinine. It was stupid. And what happened in the fourth quarter? Well, they find this late third quarter. They find, well, you know what? We're not really getting much done in the air since the first series. So I don't know. Maybe we should run the football since we're physically stronger and more athletic than Arizona.
And you're loaded with nothing but offensive linemen that are going to the NFL, right?
Yeah. So it's unbelievable. And I'm not. I've never trusted Quinn Ewers. Now listen, to his credit, they were done, and he stepped up in overtime in a huge way. So that he gets to go out as a winner. But he was awful in that game up until then.
Yeah.
And I don't trust Texas because I don't trust the quarterback. I don't trust the coach who always wants to get too cute when he can just have his team run over the other guy. Like, he overthinks it. And that was one of my big takeaways of the game. It just showed us why I think Texas is going to be in a whole world of trouble against Ohio State in the semifinals.
Well, Ohio State's playing great football, man. And speaking of teams loaded with NFL talent, they're going to be at this point. They're going to be the team to beat. I mean, they are playing the best ball. And look, we know in the baseball playoffs and in the NFL playoffs, the team that's peaking at the right time is the one that you're going to have trouble with. And it looks like Ohio State's probably doing that right now. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. It's the Gashouse Gang. First show of 2025, which means we've got to reset Nolan Arenado.
Wait a minute, but real quick, you got to pick a winner today. Then Notre Dame or Georgia, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I went Notre Dame just because Georgia's got a backup quarterback playing, and I just don't know enough about him to put that on him to get to say Georgia's going to win with this guy that has almost no snaps. One
quick thing I'll add: I also believe Notre Dame will win. I could regret that because I have so much respect for Kirby Smart. But I was thinking about this game. You know who Riley Leonard is?
Yeah.
Riley Leonard is Haynes King.
Yeah.
Same style of quarterback, same strengths, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Haynes King, 26 to 36, 72% completion rate against Georgia. He passed for 2 touchdowns. He rushed for well over 100 yards, had 3 touchdowns. So he counted for 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop him. He kept getting the edge as a runner, and they couldn't hem him in. Riley Leonard plays the very same style. It's so reminiscent of the Georgia Tech quarterback who took Georgia Tech into 8 overtimes before they finally succumbed to Georgia.
I mean, Leonard's the more talented version of that.
You're right. So that's one of the reasons why I picked Notre Dame to win. Now, I don't know how much past history means because we overdo that sometimes. Notre Dame still, as a program, has a lot to prove. They have not won a major bowl game since 1994. Right. This is a great opportunity for them. And if they can't beat the other team's backup quarterback, that's going to be a tough winter, tough off season for the Fighting Irish.
Absolutely. All right, so on to the Arenado stuff. You have a video up at YouTube, the Bernie Show on YouTube. You're talking about this today. We're just kind of resetting, right? I mean, we're into the new year. There's not been a lot of news. You know, nothing has really changed in terms of reporting so far in the last few days. But I thought it'd be important to just kind of reassess where it is because we're not hearing a lot about the Yankees having a ton of interest. We've heard a little bit about the Red Sox. We did hear about Houston, but that was kind of by the wayside. We know he'd love to be a Dodger, but that we've talked about how many times that the Dodgers situation is a lot more difficult than just saying, here, Nolan, come on in. I mean, they have to change their entire philosophy about how they're building their roster at this point. So you had the Angels listed. I mean, does he want to go there? I guess maybe if you're going to choose geography instead of competitiveness. But I was trying to go through it and see, are there other teams that we're not talking about? Like, as an example, the Alex Bregman sweepstakes are going on, and there have been reports here that Detroit's in on it, right? Now, Ken Rosenthal said today, maybe not as much as people think, like certainly not at the level that Bregman wants the contract to be. But I was wondering, I've had people say, well, would Detroit, if they miss Bregman, would they be interested in Arenado? And I don't think so. Because what they're looking for is a bat to bat second or third in the lineup that gets on base, that can drive in some runs and hit some home runs. Well, I mean, Arenado's got diminishing power. He doesn't draw walks. He's older than Bregman, and what scares them about Bregman is the latter part of his contract. So if there's no Bregman deal done, it's because they're worried about that deal at the ages that Arenado currently is. I don't know how you see it, Bernie, but man, it's becoming a tighter fit. There just aren't that many spots that make sense.
Yeah, and I don't know. By the way, Detroit might be, if not the worst ballpark for Arenado to hit in power-wise.
It's one of them.
You know how StatCast has the expected home runs by park?
Yep.
If Arenado had been a Tiger last year, this includes all games, but obviously the home field factor is hugely important. It's half the games. He would have hit 11 home runs last year.
Yeah.
11.
Believe me, I've been to the ballpark. I've been to Comerica. I've been watching games there forever. Obviously, I grew up in Detroit. You right-handed power hitters, it's worse there than it is at Busch Stadium.
Oh, no doubt.
In part because center field's so big. Center field's 420 straight away. I mean, it's a huge outfield. It's fair to left-handers. Lefties can hit for power there. Righties have a much harder time, and that's a good point. And that, by the way, it's one of the reservations about Bregman. But what makes Bregman more viable is that he walks. And when you draw walks and your on base is 340 instead of 315, that's a valuable asset that's going to last. So I would agree that's not a good place for Nolan. And by the way, it doesn't sound like someplace he would approve anyway.
No, I don't think he'd go there.
They're not a clear contender, right? They had a great one last year, but
they're an up and coming team. I think they got a bright future. But as if you're the Tigers, though, you have a couple of young third basemen. I don't know, maybe you ride with them. I don't know, but Bregman ain't going to get the $200 million. I mean, Scott Boras.
No.
I would hate to think on behalf of the player that Scott Boras is going to repeat his disaster of last spring, where he kept pitchers out and said, "Oh, they'll come crawling to us," and they didn't. And he had to quickly, shuffle Jordan Montgomery off to Arizona on a 1-year deal or one year plus an option. And Montgomery wasn't any good because he never had full preparation. And Blake Snell was good, but Boras misplayed the market last year. Is he going to do the same with Bregman? Bregman's going to have to drop his price, and then I think you'll see some other players jump in, or some other teams. But I'm with you. When John Mozeliak, like early December in the winter meeting, said like it's our intention to trade Arenado, and he let the cat out of the bag. I appreciated that he was so candid about it.
Yeah.
And I thought at that time, well, probably about a 90% chance he gets traded. Where are we now? Because you just point out it's not a robust trade market for him. So as the days and the weeks go by, it seems more likely that he'll stay. What is it? Is it about 50-50 now? Is it lower than that? Is it lower?
50-50?
And then next week, does it drop some more? And the week after that, it drops a little more, right?
I mean, it doesn't seem to clear. I mean, we know that the timing and everything else is connected to the Bregman market, right? Maybe it's Boston if they lose out on Bregman.
Right.
Where, they're looking for a defensive upgrade. They've already got a loaded middle of the order. So they would really just be looking for him, come in, bat sixth, and play great defense. And we'll get Devers off a third and move him into a first base DH situation where he and Tristan Casas go back and forth between those two spots. I mean, like they would be a team, but the Yankees have been really calm on this. Although, look, the Yankees could at any point go, let's do it. Right. That's the kind of team they are. They have that kind of juice to do whatever they want. But we also, the big part of this is not just figuring out teams that could use him. It's also combining that with where he'd go. And that's really, the bigger limiting factor. I just don't like Seattle might want him, but I doubt he wants to go to Seattle.
No, it's another bad park for right-handed batters. I think you never count out the Mets, and I've reading some of my friends in New York.
Yeah, and they're in on Bregman too. Yeah,
they could definitely sign Bregman. Steve Cohen, now that he made it through the holidays, he'll get bored in a couple days. And he may say, "Well, how come we haven't signed Bregman yet? Give him what he wants or whatever." So that could be a possibility, and I think I wouldn't eliminate the Mets as a potential suitor for Arenado, because they have Vientos, who's a really good player, but he's terrible. Very good hitter, I meant to say, the young kid.
Yeah, he's not a good
terrible defensively. So they can move him to first if they don't bring Alonso back.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. It's Arenado's tied into the Alonso market to a degree too.
Right, exactly. So I've got to be patient. I know we're all kind of burned out on it, but just like you said at the top, my man, I thought we, should just reset in now it's 2025.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of Cardinals fans, and I don't blame them, we're spending the last week or two fretting over Nolan Arenado. Yeah. They had other, they wanted to enjoy the holidays and quit worrying about silly things. So, but it deserved a reset. So that's your reset.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly right. It's the Gashouse gang here on all of the KMOX social media channels. Obviously, you'll hear this on the air as well. So if you're hearing it on the air, hi, welcome in. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Bernie, I wanted to run a question by you that I think is fascinating about the Cardinals as we get into the season, right?
Sure.
The entire point that we keep hearing from the team, not just, from us, but from Mo, mostly Mo. I mean, let's be honest, he's the one that does most of the talking on that stuff, that it's a reset. And a lot of this is about providing opportunity for players to assert themselves, for players, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, right, to show where they fit in. So let's fast forward a little bit to, say, June or July. It doesn't really matter when. But the Cardinals do have some really high-end prospects that could legitimately be pushing for roster spots. Like J.J. Weatherhold is that kind of guy. Quinn Matthews is that kind of guy. So it doesn't have to be about either of them. It could be about anybody, but if the Cardinals have one of their highly valued prospects who gets to the point by midseason where you're like, man, this guy is dominating in the minors, we got to get him a look. How do you think they approach that? Like, do you think that's the point where you're like, okay, Miles, your contract's up at the end of the year. See you. We'll pay you to go away. Is it going to take an injury to create that opportunity? Because if 2025 is about finding out, shouldn't you find out about some of those guys too, if they show they're ready? Not just automatically, but if they show they're ready. If Matthews comes out this year and does at AAA Memphis what he did last year at 3 or 4 levels, don't you have to create space regardless of what that means?
It's the proverbial no-brainer. You have an average rotation at best right now, and you also would be, and I'm giving them extra credit. I don't even know if it is average. It's probably It's probably below average, though not awful. But that also includes, Eric-40 still being a part of it, and that includes Sonny Gray pitching well, which I think he will, and Palante repeating what he did last year. So
which
they have
not
the makings.
A lock, by the way. I mean, it's very possible, but it's not a lock.
Yeah, but he's had, he was a good starting pitcher as a rookie, but they didn't want to keep him there. So, but they're counting on some people. The whole Steven Matz thing. Are they counting on him? Are they serious about Miklasz? So it's an iffy rotation. Maybe they'd like to bring Kyle Gibson back, but that sort of fits into your question because we in the media keep talking about that. Well, I think they're just waiting it out a little bit, see what happens. But I bet you they bring Kyle Gibson back. I'm not making fun of the idea. I like Kyle Gibson. I thought he was underrated when they signed him, and people were telling me I was crazy. I think people saw that actually he comes with a lot of benefits. But if you're going to keep Miklasz, if you can't trade Matz, if you want to bring Kyle Gibson back, and a few other things, then where is the room? Like if Quinn Matthews, they're already ginning up this narrative, the Cardinals, that, he'll be given a chance in spring training, an opportunity to compete, as if like they're going to put him in the opening day rotation to big leagues. I'm very skeptical about that. And I think he could use some time at Memphis anyway. But when he's ready, I don't care who it is. Step aside.
Yeah.
He is their future. It is so important to get him established in the big leagues. This would be a year if he's got to make a transition to the big leagues, and we take the assumption that, hey, he'll have to learn some things. Maybe he gets beat up a little bit until he adjusts. Well, this is the year to do that. You don't wait till 2026. And the sooner the better. Let him get through that transition of graduating to the major leagues. But what about in the second half of the season? What if Tink Hence is ready? What if he's just like lights out down? I assume he'll be in Memphis. People say, well, he could be your closer. I don't want to make him a closer. He's been fragile. The up and down of being a reliever, with his history of injuries. No, I'd rather see him every 5th day. So what are you going to do? Let Tink Hence stay in the minors all year? That's why I still have skepticism about this whole youth movement thing, because number one, they started it last year. And number two, I'm not convinced they're going to give full opportunities to people that should be getting opportunities. Victor Scott, Ivan Herrera, there's still that stuff going on where, as you've pointed out a lot, well, they're going to put defense first. They're going to put defense first.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Unless you have another ruinous offense that's going to prevent you from winning games, right?
Right. You got to score to win. Yeah.
So I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced of it.
Well, I would throw this out there too, Bern. I think they still have to move a starter now.
Right.
Michael McGreevy should be in your opening day rotation unless he implodes in spring training.
I forgot to mention him. Yeah.
Yeah. There is nothing left for him in Memphis. Nothing. Especially if Matthews and Hence and Graceffo are going to be there too. And I know Graceffo could end up in the pen, in the big leagues, whatever. But the point is, McGreevy has not. And by the way, he's not going to be any worse than the back end guys you're going to count on anyway. I think it's important, to create an opportunity. So when you're looking at it with Sonny Gray, Eric-40, Miles Miklasz, Andre Palante, Steven Matz on the roster now, one of them's got to go. You can't even think about Kyle Gibson because now you're blocking McGreevy again. And McGreevy is ready for a chance. I don't know how good he is. He might not be good at all, but I know this. He can't be worse than Miles Miklasz has been the last 2 years.
No, I mean,
Miles has been one of the worst starters in baseball for 2 years.
Yeah, there's value in innings, but that's about it.
Well, McGreevy can give you those, though, right? He's been an innings guy in the minors.
And he kind of reinvented himself in the minor leagues because of in Memphis after he had struggled for too long. But Dusty Blake, the Cardinals pitching coach, got him to change the shape of his slider and throw that more often. And I think he was dabbling with a sweeper, and all of a sudden, that thing's got a lot of movement down in the zone, and no one, major league hitters couldn't do much with it. So McGreevy should be in the rotation. You're right. Thanks for filling me in after my oversight there.
Oh, there's so many names, which is kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
The point of our conversation is there are too many names. You got to clear some out.
Well, was it Chandler? One of our watchers. I got his name wrong because it's off the screen now. But we just had one of our watchers, Garland, said the young pitchers, even if they do well, they'll be on an innings limit. So I would think we need another starter. Not necessarily. This is where I wish Chaim Bloom was calling every shot. You know why? Because they raised a lot of pitchers in Tampa Bay when he had an influential role there. And you know what Tampa Bay always had? They always had a surplus of relievers. They had more relievers they knew what to do with. So if they had to back off a young starting pitcher, they had the bullpen depth to cover those innings. And then when some of those relievers did their thing for a couple of weeks, they'd go down to the minors until things were back restored in the rotation. You don't have to add a mediocre starter just because you have young starters and you think, well, they'll be on an innings limit. It doesn't justify bringing in more mediocrity. Now Gibson's a little better than that, but still it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, well, I would say too, like McGreevy threw 175 innings last year.
Right. Do you want McGreevy in that role?
150 in 26 starts.
Right.
So, like, those guys are not. I'm not worried about workload with those. Now with Hentz, he's not even throwing 4 innings a start.
Right.
I'm worried about that. I'm
Should
legitimately like he's not going to be ready at this pace to be a starter in the big leagues. Stuff wise and performance wise, he's probably ready now. But innings wise, he might not be ready for another year or two.
It's kind of scary. I keep joking about it. It's like at this point, to your point about the lack of innings that he's pitched in the minors, he'll be ready for the big leagues. I'd say 2031 maybe. So,
I mean, he made 20 starts last year and threw 79 innings. I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong for doing that. He threw 96 innings the year before that in 23 starts. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm saying that they clearly think there's something to be extra careful with because this was, and we've talked about it, Bern, and in fact, Matt Pauley and I have too. This is a team that actually has pushed their starters. That's been the new philosophy. They've been pushing guys to go 6 innings and 7 innings, right? So if they're doing that with everybody but him, it might mean there's something they're worried about.
That's right. I agree with that. Position players other than Weatherholt, maybe Chase Davis, but he would have to be extraordinary to get a call up.
I'm not a Chase Davis guy. I'll be honest with you. I think there's just way too much swing and miss there.
Well, that's what I meant. But let's just see if the gaps in his performance that he's got to get better at. Let's just see if he can close them. See if he can start to, cover up, improve his weaknesses. That's my only point. I didn't say right now. I just meant this is predicated on him showing excellent form at AAA, where he's corrected some of the flaws in his approach and the swing and miss stuff.
How do we manage JC if Arenado's here?
I think it's a good chance he winds up back in Memphis to start the season. Here's why. Because
you're right. You're totally right.
And I'm still astonished that if under the scenario where Arenado's the third baseman again, there's still people that insist that, well, that's all right. You moved Donovan to second base. Oh, is that right? Oh, is that right? Okay, so what happened with the season of the young and we got to get Gorman 600 plate appearances?
Yeah.
So, well, you make him the DH. Oh, do you? Okay. Well, so Burleson sits on the bench? What? Huh? So, no, I mean, you don't need 2 super utility guys. So, JC might not even crack the big club at the start of the season, but you will see him at some point, 25 though.
For sure. Yeah. And people will get hurt, right? Opportunities are always created, but if this is a year about creating opportunities, we got to talk about how you do it.
That's exactly right. So, the other thing they put, and I always mispronounce his name, and I know I'm going to talk about Saliga here in a moment, who are our proud sponsor, and we're proud of them. They put, what's his name, dude? Help me out, because you're good at pronouncing names. I'm not. This outfielder, the Cardinals fans have been buzzing about it, and the Cardinals finally put him on the 40-man roster.
Koperniak.
Koperniak. Okay. Is he going to get a chance if you put him on the 40-man and he went to the Arizona Fall League? Is he ever going to get a chance, or is he like one of those John Gall guys, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, hey, well, we want to thank Saliga Heating and Cooling for sponsoring the Gashouse Gang. It's a great partnership. The Miklasz family's been calling Saliga Heating and Cooling for 16 years. So I think I'm qualified and I have credibility to serve as someone to recommend them. Saliga Heating and Cooling, in fact, has been doing this for, counting down on 100 years. They opened in 1927. So the Saliga family, 4 generations of them, have served generations of St. Louis family. And I always repeat this because I think it really matters. You have a family-owned business continuously since 1927. And the question is, who are you going to call? And I said, well, wait a minute. You have one family owning this business since 1927, and they grow stronger and take care of more St. Louisans every year. You have got to be excellent at what you do to have that kind of staying power and credibility. So they can do it all for you. Plus, they have that American standard heating and air conditioning equipment. They have the Priority Club. I'm going to let you read about that by going to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. But it is worth every penny. And we're members of the Priority Club. You'll have the peace of mind knowing your stuff's working good because they'll come out and check it a couple times a year. Yeah, it'll extend the lifespan of your equipment, things like that. So Saliga Heating and Cooling, financing options are available, subject to credit approval. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, and you'll see the phone number there. Thank you, Saliga.
Bernie Miklasz and Kevin Wheeler with you here on the Gashouse Gang. Burn, we got about, 5-6 minutes or so to finish up. And I think we should start off, first show of the new year, just kind of talking about the Blues heading into the new year. They finished 2024 really well. You had a nice Winter Classic blowout win over the Blackhawks, who are absolutely awful. And we can all just be thankful the Blues are not in that position. Oh, yeah. They're not in position where, you're going to be, well, I don't know. I talk myself around these things, but the Blackhawks are in a position where they might pick first, second, or third overall. So in 5 years, if the next big pick is a star, people might say, well, I wish I was them. I don't wish that now, though, because they're awful. And this Blues team is not awful. They've shown some signs under Jim Montgomery of getting better. The offense has ticked up. What is it now, Bernie? It was 17 goals, actually 19 goals in the last 4 games, 17 in their last 3 wins. So there are still some inconsistencies. They're still losing some games that they shouldn't, but there are also some things that have gotten better.
I think they've gotten dramatically better. When he took over, they were 26 in the NHL in points percentage. Since Montgomery took over, they're 10th in points percentage, and there's only 4 teams in the Western Conference that have been better, only 4. You mentioned goal scoring, at least goal shares, because the problem is the Blues have been struggling to score goals. We know that. But the difference between Montgomery and Bannister, the versions of those teams, and this part continues to get overlooked, and I have no idea why. The Blues were hemorrhaging in terms of preventing goals in the first 22 games of the season. They were way too easy to score against. They were disorganized. They didn't protect the high danger areas. And it was just they were at a massive deficit in terms of basically the battle to score goals. Not because they struggled on their own, but also the other teams had their way, basically. All right, here's the stat. I gave you the one stat that tells us what we need to know bottom line. They've been the 10th best team in the NHL since he took over. All right, at 5-on-5, the Blues 5-on-5 game has improved dramatically. When Bannister was the coach, at 5-on-5, the Blues were scoring 42% of the goals at 5-on-5. Under Montgomery, they're scoring just under 60% of the goals of 5-on-5. A lot of that has to do with goal prevention, but that's the point. The sport's got 2 parts. You score, you got to keep the other guy from scoring. Are you kidding me? 42% of the goals at 5-on-5 before they brought him in, and now it's nearly 60 since they brought him in. In terms of even strength, they've scored 60% of the goals. In terms of all strengths, they've scored 55% of the goals. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's not just that they've improved. They have improved dramatically under Jim Montgomery. And look at it this way, for example. And just in terms of goals for and goals against, like when goals against, they were given up before the change. They're giving up about 3.33 goals per game. Now under Montgomery, it's 2.5, and they have also increased their scoring. It's not by like this wow type of amount, but they have increased their scoring. They're a much better team than they were before, and I think that realization needs to become more widespread. That's just my opinion. They go through a little stretch where there's a lull, and it's like, I guess the coaching change paid off for a little while. The coaching change is paying off in a big way. Wheels the thing, and I know I've been monopolizing the conversation. The thing is, as good as they've been under Montgomery, I don't know. I still think it's going to be a big push for them to get in the playoffs. I think they have a lot of work to do. And I'm not so sure they'll get there. Money Puck has them about a 13% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'd give them a better chance than that, but
I think so,
what
too.
do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they're only 3 points out right now. So, I mean, that feels pretty light. And the teams that are immediately in front of them aren't significantly better than them in terms of talent or anything like that. I think what I'm still doubtful about is that streakiness that you referred to. Because, I think you're right 100%. Nothing you said is anything I disagree with. I think they're markedly better under Jim Montgomery. It is just look at it. They control the game more, right? I mean, the best way to play defense is to have the puck. When you have the puck, the other team's not going to score, and they're doing that a lot better. So it's visible, it's measurable via numbers, and what I need to see is more consistency in the outcomes. You start off and you win 4 of the first 5 with an overtime loss. So you get 5 straight games with points. And then after that, you lose 3 out of 4 and 7 out of 9. And now you're back to winning again I just want to see it level off that's it. That's all I'm waiting for. When I see that balance out, wonderful. I'm locked in. But I mean, I do see significantly better performances since you made the change on the coach. I mean, it's the style of play, the energy level, the possession numbers, everything.
I interpret that one inconsistent streak. I interpret that differently than you do, with all due respect.
All good.
Because here's the difference. They were still salvaging points out of games that they, quote, lost in overtime or shootout. 2
overtime losses in there. Yeah, so you got the point.
So I mean, during that one phase, they were 2-3-2. I mean, that's hardly a train wreck. I mean, you're holding your own. In other words, you're not playing your best hockey, and they did get outscored during that 2-3-2 stretch, but they were doing enough to salvage a point in those games that went into overtime or whatever. They were still preventing the bottom from falling out. And
yeah.
I think that that's actually kind of a big deal.
It is very big deal. And I guess, if it balances out, then they're going to be a playoff team. And then we can start talking about how dangerous they can be and whether or not because the one thing it's nice, Bern, and we'll close on this in a minute, but you have a goalie that can get hot.
Right.
You have a goalie that you can ride, so you don't have to be the 2nd or 3rd seed in the West to have a chance at advancing. I'm not talking about winning a cup right now. I'm just saying to win a series in the playoffs, you have the goaltender that's done that. You know that's possible. It's not a lock, but it's possible. So if you get to that point where you're seeing that consistency and you get into the playoffs, there might be some fun in those playoffs. If not a cup run, at least some fun.
Right. I agree. And Hofer's been pretty damn good too.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean the Blues
how about
under
this team, by the way, for the last 15 years, just churning out goalies left and right.
Yeah, they're the last time I checked, they could be 2nd now, but since the coaching change, because the high danger traffic is not as perfect. They have cut way down on allowing high danger chances under Montgomery.
Yeah.
The goalies are not under a constant barrage now. And so the Blues, the 2 of them have combined for either the 1st or the 2nd best save percentage in the league since he took over. So, yeah,
That's pretty good.
A lot of check marks, but they're going to need help because they're still playing some guys who are getting too many minutes because they don't have anybody else.
Right.
But like Wayne Gretzky said the other day after the Classic, he thinks, and he knows Doug Armstrong very well. You know, Gretzky said he's waiting. He's going to add something. He'll make a move or two to give them a chance in the stretch run if they're close. So we'll see.
Something to look forward to. Hey, at least it's entertaining again.
It is.
You know, for a while there, it was kind of like, and at least now you can look forward to a hockey game and feel like you're going to be entertained, even if there isn't a win. But then, as you point out, there are points more often than there are not by quite a bit. So that leads to fun, competitive games for us to watch on our TV or to go sit in the stands at Enterprise Center and watch there too.
Kev, right, I know we got to close it down. So I just one more time, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, that American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer in St. Louis. That's right. See, there's the van.
Little truck. There's the
van. They will take great care of you. They've been taking care of St. Louis families since 1927. 100% integrity rating from the Miklasz family, and I'm sure all those other families too. They've taken great care of us. They take great care of everyone. They've actually saved us money when they could have easily talked us into buying something, right? They just won't do it. Their family name and reputation is too valuable to them. They want your business over and over again, so they're going to treat you with honesty. But check out the Priority Club. Check out all their services. The maintenance program is great. They have financing options available subject to credit approval. But just once again, Saliga Heating and Cooling and American Standard. Go to their site for more info at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you, Wheels.
Great to have them on board. We appreciate it. Go subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're there now, just hit that. Just subscribe. The more we do that, the more like this kind of stuff's going to come available, right? It's all about numbers, and we're doing great on the podcasts from what I understand, getting a lot of downloads. We got a lot of people tuning in on a day-to-day basis every single day at noon. So keep pushing all that. Then the more you subscribe and the more you let people know that you're happy about it, the more we can do things like merch. Get some shirts and some hats going.
Absolutely.
Bernie, have a great day. Happy New Year to you, buddy. We'll talk to you on DGS tomorrow.
All right, Wheels. Thanks, bud.
All right, it's going to wrap it up for the Gashouse gang here on the first show of 2025. We'll talk to you guys again soon.